Okay, welcome Zoomers. We're not going to repeat that for time's sake, but we welcome a lot of people all over the tri-state that are joining in by Zoom, along with our live crowd here that is very much socially distanced here at the Tropicana. So with that, we've got a program that we're very excited about. My name is Dave Connor. I'm part of the TSMA Executive Committee that helps put on the different programs and such. And I'll be helping to move things along as we go through the meeting this morning. Thank you to some visionary supporters and Berry Plastics and German American who is helping to fund these programs. A little bit, like for people that have been at many of the TSMA events, we're extremely focused and proud of our purpose of what we do. We've been around for about 10 years. The committee that puts these programs on is extremely passionate about, and you've heard this said many a time from people from the TSMA, we feel that as manufacturing goes, our local economy goes. We're very strongly focused in manufacturing. And if we don't make it and we're not strong, then the local community doesn't make it, the non-for-profits don't make it, the unemployment goes up. So we have a job to do, and it is our belief that when we collaborate with each other and share best practices and get outside of the four walls of what we've been entrenched in, that we learn best practices and know-how from other people, look at the successes and failures of other folks that have tried things before us, and we get stronger because of that, and the community of the tri-state gets stronger as well. This is the steering committee that makes it up. So it's from smaller companies up to, the Alcoas and Toyotas and Berries of the world that make up the group that focuses the different events and such that we have. So thanks to all those groups. Matthew Nix, who's in the audience here, he's our chairman in his second year of being the chairman of the TSMA. It's my connection to Jamie is the reason why I'm facilitating the program this morning. But to all the people on the committee, many of you are here, some of you are distanced through Zoom because of your own travel restrictions and not able to attend events like this. But we thank you very much for all of your effort. So again, it's a very passionate group about what it is we do. TSMA as a group, we offer quarterly programs like this. Our Q3 is always a lean event. Lean manufacturing is something that if you're going to survive in North America, you're going to have some form or vision of lean. And if you don't, you probably aren't going to survive. It's been around for a long time. We're going to go into the depths of why we succeed or why we fail in lean manufacturing. Many companies attempt, and some fail and some succeed, and when they succeed at a big time way. And so our topic this morning is gonna go deeper on that. So TSMA though is a purpose. We put on these quarterly programs, bring in some great speakers and talk about things that we can all learn from. We also have peer groups. This is two of them that are coming up in September, a CFO peer group and a lean peer group. So get hold of me or other people on the committee or hit the website, and we can engage with you about the lean peer groups. It is really the essence of what we do as an organization. These lean peer groups or whatever the peer groups are, or the quarterly programs, or the best practice tours, or the shared learning. It is the core of saying you've got to get outside of your four walls and you got to learn from each other. And when we do that, there's amazing stuff that can happen. There's not a better example of the TSMA than what we've experienced in the last 6 months. This pandemic is something like I've never tried to manage through ever in my lifetime. And that's 35 plus years of leading different groups in different kind of situations. And never, when it comes around once every 100 years, there's not a playbook. And so there were a lot of Saturday mornings, Sunday afternoons, going to work early, talking to people from the TSMA that I've developed great. So again, this Q3, the theme is always a lean topic. Many of us have been on a lean journey. I know at Anchor we've been on that lean journey for about 12 years. 2008 is when we started to play around with the thoughts of lean and seeing that we very much needed to get outside the box and look at some best practices in that world. It's interesting to me, whenever you go to the AME conferences or you go to, or you read book after book after book, the lean leadership piece is the key. You can talk about the tools, you can talk about the methodologies, you can talk about one piece and flow and pull and standard work and all those things. If you go to an AME conference, what's 80% of the topics about? It's about leadership. It's about why does it work or not work? Why do companies fail or not fail? It's because of the leadership. So the topic we're going to explore this morning with Jamie is one that is near and dear to my own personal heart. It's something in my 35-year career I feel like I constantly have to be doing it, is looking in the mirror. Look in the mirror and see whether or not my leadership style is either helping us succeed or it's helping us fail. And you read about it constantly. Every lean book you pick up. If they fail, it's because leadership fails, not the methodologies. Methodologies always work. So what is it that we need to do? We brought in someone that we've actually worked closely with over the last year, Jamie Parker. I'm very excited about her sharing an hour and 15 minutes worth of Jamie with all of you as it relates to this topic. First off, I'll give you a little bit about just her credentials and bio. Jamie Parker helps organizations build people-centric improvement cultures through everyday leadership. With 17 years of multi-unit operations management experience, Jamie specializes in working with operations leadership teams who've had some targeted success with lean, but haven't yet built the everybody, everywhere, everyday improvement culture they crave. As a region manager at FedEx, Jamie had dual responsibilities: full operations and P&L accountability for plants across the country, plus responsibility for leadership development and continuous improvement for the division. As the division culture shifted and they delivered results, Jamie was invited to share her experience with officer and director teams, as well as field-based management teams in other divisions. Jamie is the author of Chapter 6 in Practicing Lean, has taught at premier lean events through at the Association for Manufacturing Excellence and the American Society for Quality, and is the host of her new podcast that's actually launching today, Lean Leadership for Ops Managers. Through strategic planning, training, mentoring, and implementation support, Jamie helps operation leaders spark improvement, behaviors, generate engagement and commitment, and develop problem solvers while still getting their daily job done. So we first ran into Jamie, our VP of Manufacturing, who's in the audience, Brian Pillman, and I were at an AME conference in Chicago. We try to go to those as often as we can. Fantastic lean conference if you haven't been to one. But at that conference, we always try to kind of zero in on specific topics or what we really want to try to grab from a specific topic or a specific conference for that year. And we went into that one with the goal of we've got to develop our leaders better. How do we do that? And we looked for that. And we actually attended a Jamie half-day program at the AME. Of course, we got there just a little bit late, but it's because of the airplane, not because we show up late. But the 80% of what we heard in that afternoon session was phenomenal. And we spent a lot of time with Jamie through the course of the next couple days, and then invited her to come down to Anchor. She actually lives in Denver, Colorado, and we have developed a relationship with her and our teams. And again, we're going to share some of that best practice of how we are tackling leadership development, because it is the key to whether or not Anchor is an incredibly strong company 20 years from now, is how successful we are in this journey. So, Jamie, without further ado, look in the mirror.
Hello check to make sure that the Zoom folks can hear me and see me. Are we good? We're good. Awesome. Well, hi. I am Jamie, and I am a recovering command and control manager. You see, back in the day, I used to tell my managers, look, it's not that hard. Employment is a contract. We agree to pay them this amount of money every 2 weeks, and they agree to do basically what we tell them to do. Stop making all your people issues so big and hard. It's not that hard. It's just a contract. And I used to see the managers on my team as pieces on a chessboard. How can I move them around? What do I need? Who do I need to put where in order to get the best results? And that's why I was quite intrigued back in 2008 when Enid, a manager on my team, said, Jamie, can we talk? You see, Enid ran a location in Georgetown, a premier location, and I thought he was in way over his head. Thought, man, you know what I want to happen? I want Enid to step down, go into this tiny little location over here, take a pretty significant pay cut along with it, by the way. And then I want to promote Charles. That's how I want to move my chess pieces around. And I was visiting Enid at his location. He said, Jamie, can we talk? We went into his office and he said, listen, I went home late last night, 8, 9 o'clock at night, late like it usually is these days. And I walked into my house and I got about 3 feet in and I stepped on a toy and it hurt and I screamed, I yelled at my kids. And I looked down and there was my 3-year-old with a look of fear on his face that I have never seen before. And that's when it hit me. I cannot sacrifice my relationship with my kids just to do what you want me to do. So we need to talk about options. Now, this is the part of the story where I'm supposed to tell you that I had this grand aha, right? Where I was like, oh, look, it's people. I'm being such a jerk. This is a human part of leadership. But I didn't have an aha moment. What actually was happening is deep down inside, I tried to keep a straight face. The face doesn't always lie though. But I tried to keep a straight face. And deep down I said, yes, 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 this is exactly what I wanted to happen. I am so good. I was so hard on him that I got him to step down. Look at me, rock star. You see, I didn't know how to get results and be a good leader. Like, I thought that I had to push and push and push because the pressure to deliver results is real, right? I mean, our economy, our local economy depends on it. So I've got to hit those numbers. And I didn't know any other way. Let me tell you, I was a popular boss. I had complaints against me. My team hated me. I hated them. It sucked. But I got numbers, I hit results, and I got promoted. And that's when things started to change. Because I became a region manager in a division where we had just started practicing this lean continuous improvement stuff. And I loved it. This makes sense, right? Like, oh, we want to create more value. The way we create more value is we get work to flow. We get information to flow. How do we get things to flow? We remove process waste. Makes sense. It's simple. I get it. My brain can understand this. So this is Ben. And back in, let's see, 2012, here I was a year and a half into this lean journey, into my transformation. And I met Ben for the first time. He was a lead production coordinator. So he was a working lead. Yes, he's got this extra responsibility of leadership, but he also has a job to do, right? So Ben tells the story of the first time we met. And he says, Jamie, it was crazy. We were so busy. Peak season, it was busy. We were slammed. And everybody was working so hard. But we were still going to miss ship time. FedEx driver came, picked up, and left, and we still had 4 jobs left to go. So we all worked through our breaks. We all worked through our lunches. We got those 4 jobs done. Somebody put those jobs into their personal vehicle, drove them off to the airport, to the FedEx station, to be last pickup, and they went out. And the customer's going to get their job on time. And I said, team, way to go. Go to lunch. And Ben said, and that's when you came up to me. And I thought you were going to give me a high five, because we just went above and beyond. But you know what you did? You started asking me why we were having so many issues at the beginning in the first place. Why weren't we running one-piece flow? Why did we have so much shit? And you started pointing out waste after waste after waste after waste after waste. And I went home that night. This is what Ben told me. He said, I went home that night and I cursed your name. You see, I was only going to cover that plant for about 5 months as a temporary assignment. And he said, he went home and he said, thank God it's only temporary, because I want nothing to do with it. You see, I guess I'm a little bit of a slow learner. Because when I got the continuous improvement part, got it, right? I missed the respect for people part. I missed how do we interact and engage with people. Slow learner here, because this was a 1.5 years in. But I'm not the only person on the team who's a slow learner. You see, as we were 1.5 years, 2 years, 2.5 years into our lean journey, it turns out that we weren't getting the results we wanted to. We got those initial quality improvements, like awesome quality improvements. We got some initial cost reductions, fantastic. But then we were starting to stall out and it was becoming harder. And I said, this cannot be this hard. We all know that this is the answer, right? We all know this is the way we need to work. And so we were doing all the things. We did training, lots and lots of training, not just for managers, for every single team member in the division. We had programs, we had visual management, we were writing standard work, we were doing all of the things, and yet it felt like we were dragging people along. You see, problems kept piling up in the proverbial and physical corner. It didn't matter how many rounds of 5S we did, we still had corners like this. And I was frustrated. I've got to figure out what's going on, because it shouldn't be this hard. And here's what I learned. I learned that we had a gap. I learned that we had a gap between what we said and what we did. You see, we said, blame the process, not the person. But you know what we did? When a big customer failure happened, we went and said, who ran the job? We said, hey, your job isn't just to do the work, it's also to improve the work. But what we did was output above all else, hit those numbers, drive that stuff out to the airport. What we said is we said, hey, you know the job best. You share your ideas. And when they did, we said, oh, this won't work. You know, we tried that before. Ever had that experience? Yeah. You see, we had a gap. Because as much work as we had done on all the things, on improving the work, improving the workflow, we forgot to improve our leadership. And I learned that if we want an improvement culture, we have to develop as leaders, not just in our lean thinking, not just in our problem solving, but in our leadership. And we were making the same mistake that lots of folks do. I see it all the time. We've got a challenge, we've got a problem, there's something we're trying to work toward, a goal. And so what do? We look for the system, the tool, the process. We say, oh, we're gonna put in standard work. We say, oh, you know what? We're gonna have tiered meetings. We're gonna have hour-by-hour charts and visual management. We're gonna do A3 thinking and A3 problem solving. And then either from the get-go or after a little bit of time passes, what happens? It becomes like wallpaper. Anybody ever have wallpaper in your plant? Yeah, you know those visual boards that we're so excited about, and over time, they're old, right? Oh, it's 6 weeks old data, we don't update them. Or we do, we update them, but we don't use the information to help us make better decisions. We're just going through the motions. And it doesn't have to be visual management. Maybe it's your gimbal walks or your tiered daily meetings. You're having the tiered daily meetings, you're checking them off the list, but they're not really adding value. They're not being used as intended. It's normal. We end up with wallpaper, right? Wallpaper. These systems are great, but they do not add value. They do not work if we don't use them. So systems alone don't cut it. We have to have the behavior, both the action and the skill. So we have to have systems and behaviors. But the picture still isn't complete because belief drives behavior. So it actually looks like this. It's beliefs, behaviors, and systems. When these three are working in alignment, when they all support each other, that's when we can get sustained improvement. That's when we can have transformation. But they don't always work together, do they? They don't always work together the way we expect it. Because sometimes we end up with inconsistencies. So let's talk about inconsistencies. And I just said belief drives behavior. So that's what we're going to start with, is we're going to start with belief. Belief drives behavior. So let's go back into the day, back in my command and control days. One of the things that I was really bad at was giving recognition, acknowledgement. Thank you, I appreciate you. I was horrible. It showed up on every climate survey, every management effective survey, every exit interview, every listening session. The message was clear. People said, hey, Jamie, you know what? You're really great at calling out all the stuff we do wrong. You're really great at pointing out where we can get better. You're really great at correcting things, but you never acknowledge the good work we do. Ever hear somebody say, you know, I do 10 things right, never hear a word. I do one thing wrong and never hear the end of it? I was that manager, for sure. And I wanted to fix it. And back in the day, I got to tell you the truth, I didn't want to fix it because I cared. I wanted to fix it because I don't like being in fourth quartile, especially on something that's a direct reflection of me. No way. So I went to work. I went to work on getting better. First, I tried to schedule it in my Outlook calendar because that is the answer to all things, right? Just make a calendar appointment. That'll solve it. So I put it in my calendar appointment so that every day I would get that reminder and I could go and say something to somebody or pick up a phone and say thank you. Lasted about 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, this is too constraining. This system doesn't work for me. My schedule is too flexible. This is too rigid. So I said, all right, I'm gonna try a different system. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have a list of everybody on my team, and I'm gonna post that list right at the side of my office door. Something I can see from my seat, and every single time I walk out my door, I'm gonna see that list. And I'm gonna hash mark every time I say thank you or give appreciation. And because I see it every time I walk out the door, I know I'm gonna follow through. That lasted, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 days. But you know what? I'm only in my office 2 days a week. The other 3 days, I'm out visiting sites. This system doesn't work for me. I was like, okay, the logical stuff ain't working. Let's go woo. So every morning, I did a gratitude practice. So I'm gonna write down 3 people I'm grateful for and why. That way I can get my mindset right. That lasted 2 days. And I went to HR and I said, Nikki, I need your help. I'm trying to fix this and nothing is working. And she said, oh, Jamie, I've got the answer for you. Have you tried the penny trick? I said, well, no, tell me the penny trick. And she said, well, you take 10 pennies and you put them in your right pocket. And as you go about your day, every time you do this activity, in my case, it was sharing appreciation, sharing recognition, you take a penny from your right pocket and you move it to your left pocket. And at the end of the day, you count up to see how many you moved over. And your goal is to move all 10 over. And because you've got these pennies in your pocket and you're checking for your phone, you're checking for your pen, you're going to get that constant reminder throughout the day. This is the system for you. I was like, yes. About a week. I still kept putting those pennies in my pocket after that week was over, but they weren't reminding me. They were just there. It's like, yeah, cool. I'm walking around with 10 pennies every day. You see, what I did not understand is that I had a problem that had nothing to do with the system. Because at that time, I genuinely believed with all of my heart that people don't deserve to be recognized for just doing their jobs. Come on. We don't need entitlement. Everybody gets a trophy. What is this business? No thanks. Not for me. And it did not matter what system I put in place and what tool I tried, because this belief was so strong that I wasn't going to be able to change my behavior. Because how you think is how you lead. How you think is how you lead. So now it's your turn. Your turn. Yes, you. I want you to think. What are the beliefs or thoughts that aren't serving you, that aren't serving your team, that aren't serving your goals? What is it that you're hanging on to? The belief that is getting in your way, that no matter what kind of system you want to put in place, it's not going to work because you don't actually align with it. Here's what I hear or see when I ask this question. Well, it's faster if I just do it myself. How am I ever going to commit to developing people when deep down I think it's faster if I just do it myself? I don't have time to do these improvement activities and do my day job. Come on. We've got work that's got to get out the door. Or people are too emotional. We should just keep it strictly business. Or hey, you know what? There's always this big swath of people who just take advantage of every situation. We can try to give them flexibility and we can try to be good people leaders, but you know there's a big group of them that are just going to take advantage of it. Anybody ever think that when you loosened up your attendance expectations the last few months? I know I heard it. How you think is how you lead. So what are the beliefs or the thoughts that aren't serving you and your team or your goals? When you get clear on that, then you can start to make progress. Because belief drives behavior. So here we have this system, belief, behavior, and systems all working together. And if our beliefs are out of whack, then the whole thing becomes harder. Then we got to drag people along. Then we don't show up the way we think we're going to show up. So let's talk about behaviors, because beliefs are not the only place this can go wrong. When we talk about behaviors, we're talking about what you do and how you do it. So yes, the activity and how, the skill, the effectiveness in which you do it. I would like to tell you all the different ways I jacked up gimbal walks. We just don't have time for all of them. But what I can tell you is that I would do them and I would stick with them And I would write my little summary report afterwards so that I knew what happened on it. And I would do it religiously. But I wasn't effective because you know what I was doing? I was going in and saying, hey, you should do this. And hey, you should do that. And so what was anybody learning? They were learning what I thought. And so while I was doing it, I wasn't doing it effectively. So what about you? Where do you need more alignment in what you do? The way to think about that is, where is what you say not match what you do? Where is that disconnect? Remember, I told you we said blame the process, not the person. But what we did was go and ask who ran the job. Disconnect. What we said didn't match what we did. Where is that happening for you? Where is your what you're doing not aligned? And what's the skill that you need to improve, to get better at, so that your how gets better? Here's what I see or hear. I say we're one team, one goal, but I kind of complain about other departments to my peers. What I say doesn't match. Yeah, when I get in front of people, I'm rah, rah. One team, one goal. We're all in it together. And I say the right things. And then I walk out of that meeting and I say, hey, Dave, can you believe engineering again? And I say, man, why can't purchasing get the right stuff ever? And I say, yep, here goes the sales team again, promising everything, and now we got to come in and save the day. It doesn't matter if I have a rally cry that says one team, one goal, if I'm also behaving that way. Mixed signals, it doesn't work. People are out there saying, oh, I get it. I hear and I see, I say I value respect, but I allow my meetings to always run later than scheduled. And my team knows it, so they just leave this open void, and they don't schedule anything during that time because they know, it's probably going to run late. I hear and I see. I say it's people first, but all I talk about is results, results, results. Hit your number. Where are you? You're red. Red is bad. Get in the green. And it doesn't matter how much I stand up in front of a team at a team meeting and say, people first, we care about you, we love you. When in the day-to-day, I say, get back to work. We've got work to get out. They're not aligned. Sometimes it's the skill. Sometimes I say, hey, you know what? I say thank you. I give recognition. I do it all the time. I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I'm not like Jamie. No, this comes easy to me. I say thank you all the time. But then when they get real, when they hold that mirror up and say, but what's really happening? You say, but you know what? It's not really effective. It doesn't come across as meaningful. Or I do one-on-ones. Religiously every single month, I sit down with every direct report and I do one-on-ones. But they kind of become like wallpaper because they're just a project management meeting. I'm not really listening. I'm not building a relationship or having empathy. And they say, you know what? I do gimbal walks, but I give the answers instead of asking good coaching questions, instead of listening, instead of letting people do the thinking. It's what you do and how you do it. So what about you? Where do you need more alignment in what you do? What do you say you value? And do your actions back it up? I mess this one up a lot because I can preach. Let me tell you, I can get on a soapbox. I love it. And I can go and go and go and go. And then someone says, yeah, but Jamie, yesterday when you called me, this didn't align. Got me. It's a work in progress. You know, I started this and I said, I'm a recovering command and control manager, and I use that word recovering on purpose because it's every day ongoing. I'm not recovered. I'm a work in progress. Here's what we have. Beliefs, behaviors, and systems all work together. When we don't have alignment, we have problems. When we do have alignment, then sustaining improvement becomes easier. So let's talk about what we do next. I'm saying, all right, Jamie, I hear you. You preached at me. I got you. I got to go look in the mirror. Fine. Here's what you do next. Here's how you get started. 4 things. 4 things I'm going to suggest you do next. Number 1, find the inconsistencies. Number 1, find the inconsistencies. You have this model that you can use, and now you want to say, okay, what's not fitting? Which of these is not like the others? Which of these is not like the others? Go back to your values, your core values, your foundational values. Write them out in those beliefs and say, okay, how does that show up? How much am I showing respect or not? How much am I showing integrity or not? How does that show up? Which of our systems have unintended consequences? Do I have reward systems that reward you for getting ahead even at the cost of somebody else? That reward you for hitting your numbers even if it means somebody else has more work to do? I need to look at that, right? Find the inconsistencies. Number 2 is to look in the mirror. Number 2 is to look in the mirror. You see, here's what happens. We say, okay, cool, I'm gonna go look for inconsistencies. And the first thing we do is look, they're not doing this. Look at those hour by hour charts that they're not filling in. Look at all this gossip that they're doing. And while there can be value in looking at what we're doing together and our shared beliefs and our shared behaviors and our shared systems, we can't start there. First, we got to start with us. So instead of going and saying, you know what, one piece flow isn't working and it's them, right? They're the ones that aren't doing one piece flow. Let me go figure out what they need to change. We got to look at us first. That's right. Look in the mirror. Don't be afraid of what you see. It's just you. It's all good. Because we got to see what's happening. We've got to go find it, and we've got to look in the mirror first. And it can be challenging to do this. Our pride gets in the way, right? Kind of want to get defensive. And so we have to be vulnerable and transparent. So number 3 is to be vulnerable and transparent. We got to peel some layers off. And so if we're going to start by looking in the mirror first, we got to ask ourselves those questions. What about me? What's my role and responsibility in the current state? So instead of going and saying, gosh, they're not wearing their PPE, we say, okay, we're not wearing our PPE consistently. So what about me first? What kind of example do I set? Do I go hop in the car and go out to lunch and sit 2 feet away from someone while telling them they need to wear their PPE and socially distance at work? What's my role and responsibility? Do I walk by it and not say anything? Am I sending some mixed signals? Because I might be contributing to this problem. What are the thoughts that aren't serving me? Because I might need to choose some different thoughts. My thought might be, this is all blown out of proportion. It's not really as big of a deal. And so I don't follow up the way I should and could. But we got a policy. So now I'm mad because people won't follow the policy. Gotta look here first. What could I do better? And where are my feet dug in? Where is it that I am not willing to budge? I was not willing to budge for a very long time on the idea that people don't deserve to be recognized for just doing their job. It is your job. Your paycheck is your recognition for your job. It took a long time for me to change that thought because I was dug in and I wasn't willing to consider alternatives. And then number 4 is to start a dialogue. We need to have conversations. Brené Brown talks about shame, and she talks about shame living in the darkness. Right? That when we can bring it out, when we can shine a light on it, when we can speak about it, then we can move past it. And it's not just shame, it's also that pride. It's also that defensiveness. It's also the worry and fear. All of those things that we feel. When we don't talk about them, when we don't shine the light on them, then we're trying to carry that whole burden ourselves. A couple of years ago, I went on this women's retreat with church, and it was one of those, like, no electronics. You had to check your phones in when you got there. No timekeeping devices at all. They took all the clocks off the wall. You had to turn in your watch. Nothing. You had no idea the whole weekend. And it was pretty intense. We're supposed to go and tell everybody, gosh, you got to go to this thing. I'm like, oh, it was intense. Man, let me tell you about this. But one of the things we did, we had these small groups and a leader. And one of our activities was about sharing our shame. And so we would go around one person at a time. And I would say, the biggest shame I carry is, and I would speak it and say it to the group. And the next person would go, and the next person would go. And then we do another round and be a slightly different wording. The thing I feel most judged for is this. And then another round, and another round, and another round, and I hated every second of it. But it was some serious stuff. People are sharing their experiences of being molested as a kid, of being raped, of having affairs, of having abortions. This is some serious stuff, the stuff we don't talk about. And what struck me at the end of that exercise is that every single one of us felt a weight lifted off our shoulders. All of this pressure that we were carrying, and we didn't even know we were carrying it until we said it out loud. So we said, gosh, this is there. It didn't solve anything. I still had some of those feelings, and she still had some of those feelings. But because I shared it with another human being, some of that pressure lifted. Now listen, I'm not suggesting you take your leadership team and lock yourselves in a room with no clocks and start sharing about your biggest shame in life. What we do need to do, though, is shine a light and start having a dialogue about the things we talked about today, about the things that you don't know and that you say out loud, I don't know this. The things you're like, gosh, I've learned this about myself. I have these opportunities to improve. I kind of suck at this. And maybe even take it a step further and say, and here's why I care. Because there's a lot to it. Do I care because I don't want to be fourth quartile on the manager effectiveness survey? Or do I care because I actually want people to feel valued at work? Two different motivations. If I get them out, then you can help me with it. Sharing what notes you took today. What are those beliefs and thoughts that aren't aligned? And what are the ones you're really dug in on? I wish I didn't believe this, but you know what? I mean, this comes from my upbringing. You know what one of mine is? Comes from old school, the way I was raised, is that you should kind of expect for the worst because then you won't be disappointed. Expect the worst, then you won't be disappointed. I carry that with me today. I just had a one-on-one with my business coach last week, and I was crying because I'm like, I am not willing to share this opportunity with people because I'm scared it won't come true, and I don't want to fail in public. And if I don't expect it, then I won't be disappointed if it doesn't happen. We carry this stuff, right? And I wish I could let that go. And if I share it, then we can start working on it. What are the things you're committed to, and what do you need help with? The key to all of this is vulnerability. Vulnerability. Are we willing to get naked of sorts? Not physically, of course. Are we willing to bare our souls from a leadership perspective? Who we are, how we want to show up, what kind of leader we want to be. Are we willing to talk about that? Are we willing to share it? Are we willing to be honest with ourselves? Now, some of you are going to say, hey, that sounds great, except there is no way I'm going to go talk to my team or my peers or my boss about those things you just put on the screen. I'm not ready. I'll say that's okay. Then maybe what you can do is start a dialogue with your spouse or your best friend. Start there. The worst thing you can do is say, oh, I'm not ready, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep it inside. We gotta share what's happening. Beliefs, behaviors, and systems all work together. But it's so much more than that. It's not the model. It's the stuff, the internal work that we gotta do. So here's what we've talked about so far. We keep messing up because we keep doing the same thing, and we say, hey, we're gonna put in a system, or we're gonna put a tool, or we're gonna implement this process. Who's launched a new process in the last 4 weeks? Anybody in the room? Yes. We're gonna launch this new process, and we're gonna hope that it works. And we do all of the work on the floor, in the manufacturing line, within the sales process, within the purchasing process, in the engineering process. And we say, we're gonna go and focus on the process, and process. And what we forget is we forget to work on our leadership too. Because if we want an improvement culture, we have to develop as leaders. And that includes the systems and the processes that we're following. What are the systems and tools that we're using in our work? What are the behaviors, the what we do and the how we do it? And then what are our beliefs, the things we think, the values that we carry, and how do these all intersect? Is this helping us get better, or is there something going on that's making it harder, where I feel like I gotta drag people along with me. Because can we at least all acknowledge that dragging people along isn't exactly respect for people? Let's at least acknowledge that. So you're gonna find your inconsistencies. You're gonna look in the mirror first at yourself, be vulnerable and transparent, and start a dialogue. Because self-awareness and self-development are a responsibility of leadership. And notice that it's not just self-awareness, it is that self-development. We've got to act too. So I've still got about 15 more minutes to go in my presentation. But before I do that, I just want to touch base on a couple of logistics, because I know we've all done this, right? We've all gone to a webinar, we've all gone to a conference, and we're like, oh, hey, there's this one thing that I'm taking away from that I need to do. And then we get back into our work, and things get busy, and we forget. And so you have the handout, and then you also have a couple of resources, and you can see those links on the back of your handout. So there's a workbook that you can download to dig in a little bit deeper. And you can listen to the podcast. We're talking about these and a lot of other things about how do we improve our leadership. So those are resources for you. So before I keep going, I'd like to spend just a few minutes on some questions from the room. So for the folks on Zoom, if you want to put questions in the chat, we're going to save the chat and I will get back to those after the event. And then for folks in the room, I just got a few minutes here that I can take a few questions that you may have. Yes. Okay, so Eric says, hey, listen, I've gone through this little exercise and I've identified some beliefs that aren't good. Right? So what do I do though? Because I believe this, right? I think is what you said. Okay, so there's a couple of different things you can think about. Number one is that we can choose what to think. When I learned this, it was like mind blown. Like, wait, what? And it sounds really simple until you have something that you believe to be factual and it's not actually a fact. Like you think it's a fact, but it's actually just a thought. And so one route to how do we improve once we identify this is to say, well, let me change my belief, because belief drives behavior and I'm going to change this thought. I'm going to choose to think something different. And a lot of times that can come from inspiration. Right, so I'm a huge fan of Bob Chapman, Simon Sinek, Brene Brown. These are folks that inspire me. And so when I go and listen to that, I'm like, oh, right. And I have some of this aha, and I can say, you know what, I'm going to choose to think differently. But have you ever heard someone say, sometimes it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than to think your way into a new way of acting? Yeah, I read that, I think John Shook wrote it in an article he wrote about New Me years ago, right? Years ago, he wrote this article about New Me, and that was the first time I read that. And so that's why, so in the lean world, when we're talking about them over there, we apply this and say, well, we don't have to convince our team that flow is a good thing or that visual management is a good thing. We just have to get them to do it every day, and then they're gonna see the benefits of it. Right? That's kind of how we apply it to them. But it can be applied to us too. We can apply it to ourselves. So here's my example of this. So Brian was a leader that I worked with, and he was overwhelmed because he was doing all this firefighting and all this problem solving. He said, Jamie, I am so busy doing all of this other stuff, I don't have time to do my job. And so when I was working with him, I said, hey, you know what? We need to get your team involved in solving problems and making decisions. We got to get them more involved. And he said, well, yeah, but my job as a boss is to remove burden, is to remove obstacles, is to make their work easier. So if I put these problems back on them and get them to solve them, then aren't I making more work for them? Isn't that actually me being a bad boss? And so we talked about it, and he wasn't convinced. You know, he had this military background. He said, I'm just not convinced. Like, I think that if I say, hey, normally I come in and I handle this and I say, oh, I'll call the vendor, oh, I'll call the customer, oh, I'll figure out this new way to package this product because the way that we're packaging it's getting damaged in shipment. And normally I take this on. If I go and say, oh, you handle it, then I'm just piling on. They're already busy. I'm just not convinced. We said, okay, so are you willing to be curious enough to try it? Are you willing to be curious enough to try it? And he was. And so we worked together on how do we help develop his team and transfer some of this. And months later, I was talking to him, and he was doing one-on-ones with his team that week. And he said, one of the questions that he asked in every one-on-one that week was, what's your favorite part of your job? And team member after team member after team member said, I love making improvements. I love solving problems. I love being creative. Something about being able to think through these problems and come up with better ways of doing things, that was their favorite part of their job. And so what he learned is he said, gosh, you know what, Jamie, I thought that I was removing burden from them by taking these problems and taking all these responsibilities on. But what I was actually doing is removing the joy. I was taking away something that was their favorite part of their job, and I didn't know it. And guess what? Now he acted his way into a new way of thinking because he was willing to take a chance and he was willing to be curious. Are you willing to be curious enough to act even if you're not convinced yet? That's the question you ask, to say, I want to move from behaviors to beliefs, or you can say, I'm going to choose a different thought. So probably it's got a few minutes, probably have time for maybe one or two more. Yeah. Okay.
You know, how do we own that as leaders? You know, it's easy to say, well, you know, there's I don't care what I say or do, or I'm for everything I got and try to make these people believe. You know, how do we take that and say, that's our job? How do we own that? I want to be responsible for getting those people to buy in.
Okay, so how do we take ownership for other people's beliefs and behaviors? Because we all have free will, right? We all have free will. And particularly on your transformation. Brian said on this transformation, on a lean transformation, this is a lean event. So you're all practicing continuous improvement. You're trying to transform your flow. You're trying to transform how you solve problems and how you work together. And so one of my recommendations is to think about, how do we frame it? Do we frame this from a place of selfishness, or do we frame it from a place of service? Here's what I mean. Have you ever heard the Shigeo Shingo quote? And he says, there's 4 purposes of improvement: easier, better, faster, cheaper. These 4 appear in the order of priority. What's like the meaningful part of that line, of that quote? These 4 appear in the order of priority. What was that order? Easier, better, faster, cheaper. What do we typically do when we start practicing lean? We want to save time, save money. Save money, save money, save money, save time, save time, save time. Cost, cost, cost. Faster, faster, faster. That's coming at it from a place of how is lean going to serve us as an organization? Yeah, I know. We're going to say, well, it's going to help us create more value for our customers, right? But the way we're going to do that is by helping the organization. If we flip that and we say, instead of coming at it from that framework, we're going to say, how can I come at it from a place of service? We say, let's frame this as easier and better. How do we make work easier and better? When team members help us make work easier and make work better, faster and cheaper automatically follow. And now what I've done is I've changed the way I'm framing it from a place of what helps me, what do I need the team to accomplish? I need them to buy in, to a framing of service. How do I serve? Well, the way we serve is we make work easier and better. Yes, it's going to be faster and cheaper. In fact, they're going to help you make it faster and cheaper because now they're going to want to and they care because we're doing it for them first. So it's that look in the mirror. It says, why am I even going after this in the first place? Why am I even going after this in the first place? Is it because it's going to help us hit our numbers? Or is it because it's going to help us make work easier and better so that we improve lives, we improve the world, oh, and we also get better results? Thank you. Oh, I've got time for a quick one.
Okay. So, we got plenty of time on that. So, as it relates to the self-awareness, that vulnerable looking into things, what are some tools that you would say are effective in helping us as leaders to do that look in the mirror and to do a true self, have a self-awareness, how we're showing up each day and how we evaluate.
So how do we actually tackle this whole self-awareness piece? And it's really, if you think about it, a PDCA cycle, right? Which is, hey, I need these inputs. And some of these inputs are me, where I observe and I reflect and I take these questions that I challenged you with and I work on those. Some of it is from your peers and your leader, and you say, hey, I want to get your feedback. And by the way, when you do that, you got to be super open to just hearing it. You don't get to explain it away. No, that's not what happened. Well, yeah, but really, you just have to receive it, right? And it's also from your team. Sometimes your team's not comfortable and they don't feel safe yet telling you the truth. So you can't just go to the team. You've got to have these multiple input points. And you say, okay, now let me work on getting better through this iterative cycle. We need these multiple input points. We've got to work on it. We've got to talk about it. We've got to reflect on it. You can do a quick check-in each day. You can have your beliefs and your behaviors and your systems and say, all right, 1 to 10, how did I do? 1 to 10, how did I do on my foundational values today? And you can ask someone else. Hey, Eric, 1 to 10, how did I do today? Tell me more. Asking questions, listening, sharing, asking questions again, listening, asking more questions, listening. Then you'll start to be able to build that self-awareness. The key is though, when somebody tells you, hey, this didn't go well, you got to believe them, right? And when you ask yourself that question, how could I own it? So I had this situation recently where I sent, so I had this conversation with somebody and I asked him a question. He's like, I don't know, I got to check at night, right? Like I got to check with my spouse or whatever the situation was. And so that night I sent him a text. I said, hey, what'd you learn? And he came back and he's like, oh, I learned. And I got like this 3-paragraph text about what he learned, like introspectively, right? What did he learn introspectively? Now my question really was, what'd you learn about the day? Right? Like I needed to know what day we're gonna do this. And I got this 3-paragraph thing long and I was like, oh my gosh. I must not have asked that question very well. The very first thing I thought was not what's going on in his head. It wasn't, gosh, he didn't answer the right question. What was he thinking? My very first thought was, I must not have asked a very clear question. And I went back and looked, and sure enough, it wasn't clear. I mean, it was clear if you were in my head. Like if you were living in my head and you knew what I was thinking at the time, it made perfect sense. But if you were just sitting at home with your family and got that text, kind of random. If I had a part to play in this, what would it be? If I was partly responsible, how? I must not have done this. When we get used to that, then it allows for more possibility. Allows for more possibility. So here's what I want to say in closing, is that we have a choice. And the choice is not what most of us think it is. You see, we think the choice is from being a jerk of a boss to being a good boss, right? To being the absolute worst, the yeller, the command and control manager I was, right? From being the worst to being a good boss. Who in here has had a really crappy boss before? Raise your hand. Have you had a really crappy boss before? It sucks, right? So can we just take that off the table? Can we just today say, hey, you know what we know? We know for a fact we're not going to be like that guy or that woman. So that's really off the table. That's not really the choice. Remember Ben? Ben was the guy that I met for the first time, and he tells a story about the first time we met. Well, he told that story for the first time a few years ago when I took over that area permanently, right? Like for good. It wasn't temporary anymore. And he said, and he told that story. And here's the thing. I do not remember it. I have racked my brain. I've meditated. I've tried visualization. I even had them go and take a picture of Ben standing in the plant where he would have been to see if the visual image would spark a memory. I got nothing. But I called Ben this week. I said, Ben, I think I'm going to tell the story about the first time that we met. Can you retell it to me so I remember it right? And he said, yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I hated you. And he's telling the story and he's getting fired up. I can hear it in his voice. He's like, I was so mad. Like, we were doing awesome. You were supposed to high five us. All of that emotion came back. And I have no recollection of it. None. You see, leadership happens in the everyday. It's in the moments that you may not even think are important. They don't even register for you, and yet they have an impact on somebody else. Somebody else years later says, yes, I remember it like it was yesterday. You see, we go around and we're bending around. This is my new word. We're bending around, right? Where we're having all of these experiences that we think are inconsequential, and they're not. So the choice is not bad boss or good boss. We took bad boss off the table. The choice is, are we going to stick with status quo, or are we going to be purposeful in how we show up? Because I get it. It is busy, right? You've got stuff to do. You've got tasks to get done. You've got production to get out. You've got an email inbox that's long. I get it. It is easy to forget to be purposeful. It is easy to get caught up in the day. We get so busy setting up, following up, catching up that we forget to purposefully show up. If we want to be purposeful, we have to make a different choice. Either status quo or we work on ourselves. And I like to practice what I preach. So back in 2016, I hired a life coach. And I had some issues with self-confidence and self-worth and loneliness. Some of those things that, you know, my life was good. Like I had friends and I had a really great career and I was making money. Like it was okay, but there was just something missing. And so I hired this life coach to start working on those types of things. And we were working on all the messy me stuff, right? And we got together every week on the phone and talked for an hour. And so this is Melinda, and this was my coach back in 2016. We worked together for a little over 2 years. And back in May of last year, I was in Salt Lake City doing a training class with a client. They had 90 leaders. We did 3 days with 30 leaders in each group doing all this problem solving and thinking through iteration. And I was exhausted. At the end of the day, like it's been 3 days training, and I go to the airport and I slumped down in the chair at the gate. And I got word that Melinda had died. And I know that Melinda knew how much impact she was having on my life because she was seeing it week after week, right? She could see it. Even when I couldn't see it, she could see it. But there was this whole other impact that happened that I don't think she knew about. You see, my dad struggles with alcoholism and drug use, like prescription drugs. I mean, for as long as I can remember being like middle school and having the calendar where we count the sobriety days, right? We check them off. And as an adult, he had kind of moved into more of the pain pill stuff, nasty stuff, right? And not in like a, hey, he can't function kind of a way, but in a way that it really strained our relationship. Because I would get angry at the decisions he was making. And we wouldn't talk much, and it's very superficial. But the work I did with Melinda, it taught me how to set boundaries in a way that I could regain my relationship with my dad. And that's what you want, right? Now, Melinda and I never talked about my dad. That wasn't the work we were doing. But there was this side benefit, this side impact she didn't even know about. She had no idea that in the work that we were doing and setting boundaries and developing self-worth and allowing me to own my stuff and allowing other people to own their stuff actually gave me an opportunity to get my relationship with my dad back. You see, the choice is yours. You can choose status quo. You can get caught up. You can get busy. You can think that, gosh, I got to get the stuff out the day. I don't have time for people. Or you can choose to be purposeful in how you show up because you are impacting lives today, whether you intend to or not. It's just a matter of whether you're choosing to have an impact the way Melinda had an impact on my life, or whether you're allowing status quo to happen and you're impacting people the way I impacted Ben. The choice is yours. And, you know, the story used to end here. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, is that in May of this year, at the age of 62, my dad had a heart attack and died. Not only did Melinda give me an opportunity to have my relationship back, but at a time when there wasn't any time left. If I hadn't taken on the work of saying, I'm gonna go and spend time and money and energy and invest in myself and get a coach so that I can be better. And if she hadn't shown up and pushed me, if she said, oh, I don't wanna push Jamie too hard. You know, she's got a lot going on. She's traveling every week. We'll go light on her this week. If we hadn't acted then, I would have lost out on that opportunity. I would have lost these last 3 years. So the choice is yours and the time is now. Thank you.
And for all the manufacturers either here or on Zoom, I'm in the later stage of my career. For 12 years, I've been studying lean. The impact is incredible. It is the success for staying in North America and thriving. But it always comes down to leadership. Always. Always. So I hope everyone wrote down those 4 takeaways. Find the inconsistencies, look in the mirror, be vulnerable and transparent, i.e., what about me? What about me? What about me? And then start a dialogue. Start a dialogue. We're going through an experience at Anchor on developing our leadership because we will be a strong, dynamic company 50 years from now. Guaranteed. But it will only happen when our leadership, and we made it clear, whether they're 64 years old and 1 year from retirement, or they're 32 and they're the next generation that's going to take us to great places, they've got to do what she's talking about. And they have to be willing. I have to be willing to say the time is now and I want to change. I want to look in that mirror and I want to see how I'm showing up each day from my level, from any level within our company. So Jamie, that was a great message. As the TSMA often does, we give very expensive gifts that are actually inside a very small package. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing your thoughts. So we're going to take a 60-second break. Again, TSMA, engage. If you're going to be taken off after this to get back to work, we're going to do like a 20-minute segment on just giving you the best practice, because that's what TSMA is all about. We're going to share with you what we're doing at Anchor as it relates to this leadership development process that we are engaging in. And so 30 seconds, just a quick stretch. Please don't go bathroom and all that kind of stuff. And then about 20 minutes and it'll be wrapped up. So again, thank you again. Check us out on TSMA website if you want to find out more information about any upcoming programs. And we'll talk again in 60 seconds. So Jamie and I are going to share, and then we've got an actual testimonial of the impact it's had on just one leader at Anchor. But again, best practice sharing is what TSMA is all about. And hopefully there's something you can hear in this that intrigues you to move forward with something yourself. But, you know, we had, I told you our journey started in 2008. That's when we started reading The Gold Mine and some of those early books with the senior leadership team. And for about 10 years, there were things, we started off very heavy on the tools. And after 3 or 4 years, realized it's not just tools. You got to figure out how to engage your people. In 2016 was the first time, even though we had done a lot of different improvements at Anchor, in 2016 is the first time we kind of formalized the whole Anchor, we call it the Anchor Performance System. So that was just a couple years ago where we put that on paper of what that looks like. What are these foundational values? What are the methodologies? What are the principles of lean? How do we engage our people? So we started to put in writing what this journey is going to look like. So kind of amazing that it took from 2008 to 16 to truly formalize it, but it did. But as we continued the journey, again, we've had some successes. You go 3 steps forward, then 2 steps back and 3 steps forward. So as we experimented on things that were working as it relates to different product lines, and we build pool covers, we build large tents, there's a number of different product lines, and having some success in some and not as much in others. A lot of experimentation. But what we realized was we still didn't have all of our leadership engaged at the level that we knew was critical for us to have the biggest impact for Anchor being a competitive company for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Especially an Anchor where you can get kind of focused in the Evansville community, you know, mid-sized kind of manufacturer. You got a lot of people that have been working there for 47 years kind of thing, and you get inside your box and then you're making that frame tent system the same way that it's been made for 27,000 years kind of thing. And when you get in that, at some point you wake up and somebody else has figured out how to make a frame system a lot more competitively than you. And that's where your market share begins to fade. So anyway, as we're having successes and failures, we realize that we need to engage leadership at all levels. And as we did that, we first decided that we've got to define what does leadership, what is the mindset of a leader at Anchor. If we can't describe that and define that, then how do we expect people to show up in any certain way? And we did that by defining in a very simple way, what is the Anchor leader mindset? And that's what you see in these 3 bullets. There's really 2 main thoughts that happen with this Anchor leader mindset. One of them is simply that we're here to serve others. As a leader at Anchor, you're here to serve others. You've got to be able to grab the hearts and minds and the soul of the people that you're engaging with. Whether you're engaging with the next level of leadership or the team members that are making the products or the sales reps or whoever it is in whatever department, you have to engage in the emotional side if you expect them to want to make Anchor this company that is going to grow and prosper in the future. And so how do you engage people and do it with a servant heart so that they engage in a way that says, I can be valued, I can contribute. People want to do that. They don't want to come to work and be robots. Well, it starts with leadership, and having that servant leadership approach is where it has to begin. So that was the first bullet. That ties into the 3rd bullet, actually practice the mindset and behaviors of reach. Reach is our foundational values. So respect, engage, achieve through learning, courage, and humility. Those are 5 words that as a leader at Anchor, if we're going to expect them, we're going to expect everybody to be respectful, then you can't do it if you don't practice it. So when you practice those foundational values, then you can teach people the foundational values. If you don't practice it at this level, you can't expect the next level to get it. And then to practice that with the level below them and on and on. So practice the mindset and behaviors of reach so that you can develop it in others, okay? And then the second one is, it's not just to engage people in some fuzzy way, okay? It's not servant leadership and it's just this emotional attachment to people. It's emotional attachment to people so they can become everything that God gave them the ability to become. But then as a leader at Anchor, the second bullet point is you have to lead with purpose. You have to lead with purpose. You have to know your lines. You have to know your department. You have to know the numbers. You've got to understand how improvement is going to happen. You have to understand the Anchor performance system, the lean principles and practices and methodologies. You got to know that stuff, because when you know that stuff, at point 8, it is our current state, and maybe we have a competitive or non-competitive frame system that we manufacture, but point B is a vision of what we want it to look like. And you got to be able to have a vision of what point B looks like, and then you have to know how to go make point B happen. So engage the hearts, minds, and souls of the people through servant leadership, and then lead with purpose. Know your lines and move them forward so that Anchor has 500 cars in the parking lot 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. So that is the foundation. We've communicated that clearly. We brought Jamie in on the front end of this as we work toward then developing where we want to go. So when Jamie came in, there was, when Brian and I was telling you about, we went to the AME conference with this thought that, you know, we've got this first level of leadership, which some are in this room, many are on the Zoom call, and we got this first level of leadership, 30 or so lead team members, we call them at Anchor. Okay, and those lead team members, they may have been a great sewer or a great fabric welder or whatever in our world of Anchor. And because they're that, now they're put into a leadership role. Some of them have been in the leadership role 2 years, and some have been in a leadership role 40 years. Okay, so we expect them to automatically now know how to lead people. And we never developed them. We never trained them. So we engaged with Jamie to come in and say, Jamie, let's start working with that first level leadership. They deserve the development and the training. And so we brought Jamie in. Dave's goal, as she says here, was to develop the lead team members. And after Jamie spent some time at Anchor over the course of a couple of visits, she said, Dave, time out. You can't start with your lead team members when you and Brian, and she's being kind. She did the slide where she said, Jamie's adjustments start with the value stream leaders, which is our second level of leadership. She really means to say, start with Dave, start with Brian, start with your value stream leaders. If we're not showing up and we don't understand how to show up to our value stream leaders, then how do we expect our value stream leaders to know how to show up to their lead team members? If our value stream leaders don't understand what lead with purpose means, how do we expect them to teach our lead team members what it means? And so we put a hold on the whole lead team member training, and we started with training as it relates to me with our VP of manufacturing and with our value stream leaders. So phase one.
Here. So we're different heights and the camera's here. So I got to step up like this while he stands back here. So we started with value stream leaders and with Brian and Dave all together. And we had some context. We wanted to make sure that it was really customized to Anchor, that we were using their language, we're using their values, and went through some foundational development on, like, we have these competing demands. So what should we even spend our time on? And a lot of this is structured in a way where, yeah, some of it's the behaviors or the systems. A lot of it was the belief, because there were some beliefs around, well, I don't have time. Yes, those are important, but I don't have time to do that. And we had to help get these folks to think about, like, okay, well, but shouldn't it come first? And it's a work in progress, right? We do all of this together. And so we did some reinforcing feedback. How do we go the route to spark desired behaviors, to get what we want people to do, but in a positive way that's respectful and that's easier? You know how hard it is to correct behavior? Why don't we reinforce good behavior and really build this foundation? We really worked on high impact listening. So how can you build relationships and build ownership by really listening to people, and then putting in those systems of one-on-ones, and then asking good coaching questions so that we get better in how we lead in the systems that we have. And at the time, this was the beginning of the year, so I was coming out each month. We were doing some on-site. We'd have virtual follow-up. We're having one-on-ones. And so this had a really great impact. There were some folks who had some kind of massive shifts internally. There were folks that had some behavior changes and like just completely transformed the way they were interacting with people, right? So like Eric here was sitting with some folks and he started to show up a little differently. And Brandon here, he had a big shift in, because he was struggling with some things about, who do I want to even be? This is a lot of, what do I want to do? And some of that identity and definition of how he wants to show up. And so we went through all of that in this phase one process. And then what happened? Yeah, this plan kind of out the window. And so we started adjusting in real time. And initially, that very beginning, Anchor is all in with, figuring out how to respond to this, right? So I shifted to doing one-on-ones. Instead of saying, let's all get in a room together, I'll do some one-on-ones with leadership development. We also had 2 value stream leaders that joined. And so we were able to do 8 of these virtual sessions, me and those 2 value stream leaders, to kind of train them and get them up to speed on what had happened up until now. And what that did is it gave us an opportunity to test virtual development. Because I've done webinars and virtual work for years. When I was at FedEx, I've run virtual team or remote teams since 2006, right? I'm used to not living in the same city, but most of it was on the phone. But we all know, it's different when you're in the room, right? Like being in the room, doing hands-on activities, that's a different experience. And so I know Dave was nervous. Dave was like, we can't do this. You've got to be here. I was a little nervous too. And what this gave us an opportunity was to, okay, well, let's just try it on this kind of the scale with 2 value stream leaders. And Dave and Brian came into the last session that we had with Corey and Jay. And Dave said, okay, you know what? I was wrong. This will work. you still show up, like I'm still getting your presence. And so we started doing some virtual development where I'm like on these big screens. I'm like, oh my gosh, every pore has to be showing, right? Because I'm on these massive screens in these rooms. Thank goodness I don't see it. But I was still a little nervous about the hands-on stuff and, you know, thinking about activities. Like I love the Magic Maze game. It's an amazing game. It has so many takeaways and so many things that we can learn from. But I'm like, how do I do that if I'm virtual? And I was able to take Jay and some other folks and do like a train the trainer so we could still do it all. And so now what's happening is we're working with lead team members and they've committed to 90 minutes a week. Some of that is with me. Some of that is this virtual work with me. I'm on site this week, so I've got 2 days that I'm actually in person with those groups. Some of it are working sessions. Some of it are more of the lead with purpose. So Randy, the quality manager, was able to do a session with them on quality and 5S as a foundation of quality and go do some go and sees. And because they've dedicated this 90 minutes every week, there's some sort of development happening. Doesn't mean they're sitting in a classroom with me every week. It means that there's some sort of activity. And what we're doing is we're blending in the different areas that Dave talked about, where he talked about lead with reach, right? That service mindset, and lead with purpose. And so we've got topics and challenges and skills and things that we're doing across both of these in this mixed model approach. And so it's not like, oh, you're gonna get leadership development with me, and then you're gonna get tactical stuff with Dave and Brian and their team, right? That doesn't work. We need it to be cohesive. We need it to be something that's all working together and that's integrated. So if we're doing work development right now and standard work this week, but we're also integrating that back with the reinforcing feedback. So a leadership skill. How do you apply that leadership skill to getting standard work to be used? All right, so we're pulling this together in this mixed model approach.
All about leading with purpose, and at the same time, serving leadership and how we engage our minds with people that are important to us. And so being able to go back and forth between the lead with purpose side and the servant leadership side, and to look at this as this isn't a TSMA webinar, right? This isn't a 1 hour, 2 hour kind of thing. This is a journey, and we will be on this journey. When we first started with the vaccine leaders, about beyond the 3 to 6 months kind of thing, and we set the same kind of statement to our team members. I think really look at this as a 2-year. Right, we're constantly learning and growing. Everyone that's been in leadership and sitting in this room or on a Zoom call, you don't become a leader overnight. It's not some magic formula. It's experiences, and it's that looking in the mirror and that self-awareness. And so it takes time. We're developing a program that will take time, the time that we need over weeks and months and years to follow.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see some of this, particularly, you know, with lead team members. And, you know, these folks, for the most part, are working leads, right? So they're like Ben was, where, hey, they are taking on this leadership role, and it's awesome. And they also feel this pull that they've got to get work out the door, right? It's a tough position, and also one of significant influence. Think about, you know, your team members across your operation and who has the most direct one-to-one interactions. It's our leads, right? Every single day. And so this is where you can really have a big shift in your culture and a big shift in performance. And so it's been really neat to see, you know, someone like Kathy who says, gosh, you know, I've been doing this reinforcing feedback and I've been trying this out. And somebody came in and is like, oh, well, can I help with this? And they volunteered to take more on. And she's like, oh my goodness, since when do people volunteer to take on more work? All I did was practice this little skill that you taught, right? And I was just doing a little bit of it. It was the first week. Or to hear Adrian come in and tell a story about, you know, how he was doing this. And one of the things he gave reinforcing feedback on was to a team member who called him out for doing a process incorrectly, right? Like for having a quality issue. So this is great because we want an environment where people are willing to say, hey, whoa, this is wrong, stop, even if the boss is the one who did it, right? We've got to be willing to speak up. And so he's sharing that story and he says, but then, so I tried to do this. I tried to say, hey, thank you for sharing this. It really helps us meet our quality goals, like doing all the things you taught us. And the person was like, are you mad at me? And so what I realized is that my body language and my tone wasn't matching my words. And so then he learned and he went back and he's getting better and he's getting better. And so we're having this type of impact. And so it's just really fun to watch that week after week. So here's my role in this is development mapping and strategic alignment, working with the Anchor Performance System and the Anchor Way and all of our foundational values, figuring out, listening to both lead team members as well as value stream leaders to figure out what's missing, and then kind of mapping that out. What kind of sequence do we use? How do we integrate? I'm doing content development and facilitation on the leadership side, as well as, some of the other smaller pieces. I'm also supporting the Anchor leaders with their content facilitation. So Braden's working on standard work. And so I'm kind of bringing in some of my experience on that, and then some direct leadership development and mentoring with the value stream leaders as they're working with their lead team members. So that's been kind of my role currently. And then what's next? Dave?
We want to take it, so we started off with stuff and leaders, lead team members. There, we're going to go to our non-production team. And so we got the group, engineering person, HR, various group cells, and a lot of them bring the same kind of development programs to all of them. Again, sometimes the best sales rep becomes the sales manager, or best all up. So, when it's all said and done, we hope to have a very comprehensive leadership development program that doesn't keep the services of change for the rest of our lives. Keep here to build the foundation, and then we're actually going to continue the program on from here to being able to deliver on.
And so that's what we're doing with Anchor, and I'll just leave it up for a discussion if you have questions for Dave or for me about that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask. So, testimonial of just Brandon. Last he was a value stream leader, and now has been promoted or moved into a position of running our continuous improvement, our lean department, and Anchor. And I asked him to share a couple of thoughts on what his experience has been going through this whole process.
So, well, the two biggest things that have come from training was one was very deliberate and people build values that want to make sure that they're going. And so, they mentioned earlier about working progress. I am definitely working progress. There's a lot of years tested some of them. Anyways, the big focus I have that on my daily plan every day. I look at it because being deliberate, I will be deliberate every day in how I show up. So I had to want it. I know one thing, I wasn't showing up at home that you could show up and do everything. So overwhelming and get that downward spiral that just seems to stress you to take over everything that you do. And I wasn't showing up the way I needed to. So in order to do that, I have to want. So that's the first thing. Showing up differently in home. You need to find inspiration or no better way of doing it in your own trouble, right? So the second piece, it wasn't as deliberate, it was actually speaking of not knowing where to bring around when you're having a conversation with someone and you didn't know how impactful it was. They remember everything that you did. I was actually in a one-on-one session with Peggy, and I can't remember the context, but one thing I do remember was she said, just change. Right? So I had to want it, number one. But the second thing was I had to do it. So I could just hope that something came along and helped me do it differently. Or I could just go out and do it. So that's what it seems like. by no means a perfect figure. I'm working on that actually. But what I am doing is showing up more effective, better than I ever did. So that's just
Thank you, Brandon.
So the craziness of the day-to-day is no different now from 6 months ago. Brandon showed up a certain way and was always on edge, if I can be blunt. Versus how he shows up today. We're busier today than we were 6 months ago. Things have gone at anger on demand percent, schools reopening and other things. And yet our effectiveness at some of the continuous improvement projects and things that he's leading has been fantastic. So the world didn't slow down for him to become a more effective leader. He's a more effective leader than he decided to become. And I love how he tied it back into his home life is so much better because it is irritation at work and irritation at home. So, we'll still work. Okay, Matt, you have a question?
So, we're also, I appreciate the focus that you're putting on the frontline leader. We're doing the same thing in our organization. Also understand that we got to start.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is I appreciate Anchor's focus they're putting on the frontline leadership. It's companies are doing the same thing. Recognize we also have to start to follow on middle management, all those things. But my question specifically is to the work you're doing with frontline leaders. Like in our case, that's our shop foreman, our team lead. So going back to one of the things you said, Jamie, earlier, structuring local leads are kind of getting in our way. And I think for us, one of those beliefs that I've kind of let it take hold is that they're too busy to do this work. And we tried 5 different ways to schedule these types of training events to accommodate. We just really struggled. It just struck me that there is not going to be a schedule that will be perfect. Really, it's a belief that we're allowing take hold and getting the work done is more important than this. And it's hard too because you got the customer wants you to deliver and make a commitment to do these things. So just maybe some advice you would have for me as a leader in an organization to help and influence maybe the mid-level managers to help change that belief that we don't have time to dedicate. And then you said 90 minutes a week. I mean, we're an hour. We'd be happy with that. 60 minutes. That's my question.
I kind of can't wait to hear what some of our lead team members have to say on that. Because I will tell you, the one decision that Anchor made is they said, if we're going to commit to this, we're committing to it. This week is probably the worst week for me to be here asking for their time. They are slammed. They've got work that has to get out the door. They've got work that's at risk potentially if they don't get some things going. And we talked about, well, do we scale it back? Do we, you know what? I mean, we have something planned every single day this week plus on Monday, right? So do we scale it back? Do we wait on some of them and just do them virtually 2 or 3 or 4 weeks from now when it slows down? And the commitment was, you know what, we're gonna stick with it because when we make this commitment, we're gonna make a commitment. And so it's a hard decision, I suspect, Dave, for you.
Yeah. It's the same. You got to have the commitment of all your managers, and that is so absolutely true. There's not a stronger statement that I could make on what you're talking about there, and simply just do it. I have heard about our lack of leadership development for years and years and years, and then once you make that commitment, you simply have to just do it. And we're talking about an hour and a half of classroom kind of time. But then we're asking them to go practice it. So if you can't do that when things are intense, I mean, again, leadership isn't something that happens when you're in December and it's around Christmas time and you haven't had a lot of time because the demand's not there. Leadership happens every day in crisis of the moment and problems and problem solving and all that kind of stuff. So there's a part of me that as much as our guts are hurting right now, that we're not back over there right this second, getting stuff done and out the door, there's also a part of me that says, what a better time to learn what it means to lead than in a crisis like this where we have so much to do. And so that commitment is just something that has to start at the top, and then you've got to get your real managers to simply buy in. But again, that's why we started with that middle management level. You know, it's taking them to develop.
Can I? Yeah, so I'll jump in. So you remember how I talked about sometimes we change our belief. We choose a different thought. We change our belief to drive the behavior. And sometimes we act our way into a new way of thinking. And I think that in some cases, this is a little bit of act our way into a new way of thinking. So when I started working with value stream leaders initially, I mean, I don't know how many one-on-ones did we actually keep the first month, right? They were constantly getting rescheduled. And I would keep showing up and say, hey, let's make sure we're getting back up, right? And so there was a little bit of that foundational stuff that happened before we got to this point so that they could get used to, like, I don't know what happens with everything else, but when it's an appointment with Jamie, we're keeping it, right? And so just so we could at least build some of that. So I do think there was some of that built. I can tell you that from a lead team member perspective, not all of them think that we should be doing this. Some of them come in and like, I should be getting workout right now. And they sit down anyways, right? And so I do think there's a little bit of acting your way in a little bit, whereas someone like Kathy or Adrian is going to say, yeah, it is more time up on the front end, but she volunteered to do this work. I would have had to have done this work, but because I'm using this stuff I'm learning, now I've got a team member volunteering to come in and do this work and take on these extra responsibilities. And so Kathy does see the value in it. And so it is, it's a little bit of that, I think. And I don't know, Brian, I don't know if that's answering, because I don't have a great, like, yeah, do this, and everybody's going to say it's the most important thing. I don't have an answer for that.
But if you get committed to it, and you stay on it, stay on it, stay on it, people will be unbelievable. You just got to stay committed to it. That's what I truly believe that. Brian, do you want to add something to that?
Jamie, I've got a question I'd like to from chat.
I was just going to add that at the beginning, I was a nervous wreck every time we try to do this because of commitments. But it didn't take very long, really, for me to see the benefit from doing it. When the team leaders and the value stream leaders started to really buy in and we changed the way we were leading people, it seemed like the people around us just started to rally because they saw a difference in us. And then it started getting easier. And when it starts getting easier, then they're like, hold on. This used to be really bad, still bad. But it used to be really bad. And it's getting better, so let's stick with this a little bit. And the momentum is building, I think. So I'm still a nervous wreck, but I like it better.
And so the question is, are we willing to be curious enough to try it for long enough to see? Because I mean, we'll have to make a commitment for long enough time, because it's a commitment on the front end that pays off on the back end. So are we curious enough? Are we upset enough with our current state and with the trajectory we on? Are we okay with the status quo as is? Because you're right, there's never going to be a good time. There's never a good time for me to repair my relationship with my dad, and the longer I wait, the less time I have. It's never a good time to develop your leaders because there's always stuff going on, and the longer you wait, the more binning stuff that's happening, right? And the more you have to clean up.
Okay, 9:30, we need to respect the time. If there's any other questions, feel free to come up and ask. And thanks for both the Zoomers and for you that are here this morning. Thank you.
You want to answer?